What's going on, everyone? My name is Under the Radar and welcome back to the Draft League Viabilities. And in this episode, I'm going to be covering something that I know a lot of you guys have been asking for quite some time now, and that is for me to cover weather teams in general. Now, I feel as though there isn't that much of a difference between them to split them up into separate videos. However, I probably would make more money that way. Maybe I should have. However, I'm going to just go ahead and talk about them in one single video because I think each one of them needs just a few specific things to make them shine. So what we're gonna do this, and underneath Kingdra, I think that Rain only needs 3 things to make it really good. I think Sand needs only 2 things to make it really good. And I think Sun also can benefit from 3 things. So whenever looking at this, also I'm probably going to delete some of these as we go on so that way you guys can see everything, because right now you guys can't see all the things for Victory Bell and Sun. So the first thing that I think this needs, it needs a good flying type. A lot of times people are going to say that they prefer Torn T on Rain. However, I think Torn T is a little too expensive. I think with Rain, you really benefit from having something in tier 1 like a Thundi I, a Thundi T, a Zapdos is another really good one. So you have reliable ways of getting rid of hazards with with Zapdos and with Thundi I, because of Prankster Defog, of course. I also think that in tier 1 you have some really good options for some busted Pokemon that can make it really easy for you to get other cores. For example, Tapu Koko. If you have an early draft pick, Tapu Koko in Rain being able to spam Thunders in electric terrain is phenomenal. So I don't think Torn T is the best. I think that you can get a bunch of different flying types with Rain that make it really good. The main thing you want a really good flying type for is to be able to break down the really specially bulky grass types like the Tangros, the Tangalas, the even the Spadef Chestnuts can be really annoying to break down because your ice beams aren't hitting it for super effective damage, and after the Draco drops it's really difficult. So Celebi is another really good one. So I think that a really good flying type that's low tier that allows you to get in something else to work outside of Rain if you decide not to bring it is actually Talonflame. And I think this because you don't need Gale Wings anyway. It's really not that big of a deal. Because of Stealth Rocks being so prevalent and you already having a Pelipper that can defog, Flame Body is just really good for things that want to try to pivot around to stall your rain turns or try to get a really good advantage on you. Flame Body can be really good to burn them. 9 times out of 10, whenever you have a Talonflame, you're only going to be running like Brave Bird, Roost, Swords Dance, and then maybe like a Bulk Up or a Will-O-Wisp or a U-Turn or something along those lines. You hardly ever run fire coverage because it doesn't really need it if you have things that can break down bulky steel types, and Rain breaks down bulky steel types really easily. And let's say you are using this, you can always just run like the natural gift ground to break down bulky steel. So it has ways of beating it without its fire stab, which makes it really good in Rain, in my opinion. The next thing that you need is you need a grass type that does not get synthesis but also gets another form of recovery, so that way you can reliably heal up in the Rain. The easiest one that I always use is Celebi. It gives you a rocker, it gives you a U-turner, it gives you a healing wish user, and but most importantly it gives you a Mon that has recover over synthesis. If you are running synthesis in Rain, you are going to only recover 25% of your health. Having the recovery of 50% is crucial with your grass types. On top of that, this thing also gets access to a bunch of setup moves to make it a really good Z move user to help break down things like bulky steels that Talonflame also doesn't really want to have to deal with only fire coverage, and this thing can run like Ground EMZ. The steel types are generally a pretty good switch in on this. Fire types aren't going to come much anyway, and you have a quad resist to U-turn, so things like Scizor, Bugs, they're not going to be doing that much damage with Talonflame. These two together work out really well. Now this last Mon, it's kind of sort of iffy. I always say try to get a Mon that can break down steels that aren't in Rain. but this can be a plethora of different things. This can be another rain sweeper like Kabutops. Kabutops is really good because it gives you rapid spin for Talonflame. It can be Ludicolo because it gives you a grass type in rain that can make it really, really threatening. If you guys don't know how good Ludicolo is, Ludicolo and Kabutops are really, 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 really powerful in rain. The combination of water, ice, and grass for Ludicolo plus Focus Blast makes it a phenomenal Z-move user. And then Kabutops with Priority and Aqua Jet plus Swords Dance, Liquidation. It's so good. So this can be any of those. But another thing that I always try to suggest is getting a really offensive ground type to be able to pressure bulky steals. And something that I really liked whenever I used it is I had Nidoking on a rain team, and it was so good. Nidoqueen, however, I think would be better because it can switch in on the electric types a little bit easier for Pelipper. It can help break down bulky steels for Talonflame. It can help break down bulky grasses for Kingdra. It can also help switch into bug types for Celebi, and it can also take rock type hits for Talonflame. So these 5 together work out really well. And then if you add in something that can also get rid of hazards on top of it, like a Zapdos or something like that, you're all set. This right now has no tier 1s on it, so you can easily get a Zapdos. It's 3 flying types, but typically with weather teams, you're going to stack up mons that have similar typings anyway. Like, you're going to have multiple water types. You're going to typically have 2 flying types. You're going to typically have no fire type. You're going to have some holes with that, but it's definitely manageable. I think that these 3 work out really well in rain. Talonflame in rain, it does boost your opponent's Scald. However, typically if they're a bulky water type, you're going to outspeed them easily with this massive base 126 speed. And if you get something like a Thundy, like a Zapdos plus Celebi plus Nidoqueen plus Kingdra, you can break down bulky steals really easily for this to be a win con on top of Kingdra. So I really like this rain core idea, and I think it works out really well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to delete Nidoqueen, and I'm going to delete Talonflame so that you guys can see the last 3 for Sun. So Tyranitar plus Excadrill, these things don't need much. This alone in a core itself is really good. The main reason why I say that is because this thing can break down pretty much everything except for bulky waters. So that means that you need something to bait in bulky waters and beat them down. So the first thing that I always suggest with it is Araquanid. I think Araquanid is super useful. I was going to do a draft league viability on Araquanid itself, but then I realized it's super useful here, and I'm going to talk about Sand anyway, so why not talk about it? The reason why I say this baits in bulky water types, with the water bubble ability, what it does, it has so many uses. This Pokemon's water power is doubled by 2, it can't be burned, and firepower against it is halved. So the only switch into this thing is a bulky water type with liquidation. If you're like Adamant, Choice Band, and Liquidation, this is the bulky waters are the only thing that can switch in. And once those things are weakened, typically Adamant Life Orb Driller can break through whatever bulky water your opponent has. So I definitely think Araquanid is one of the best. It also gives you webs in case your opponent has a super fast Scarfmon, like a Zeraora, for example. You can then outspeed it with that, and I really like that idea. Another thing that these two kind of sort of struggle to break are grass types, which this also helps out with its bug stab. So there's a couple different things you can do with this. For an offensive core, I like pairing Darmanitan with it. It also baits in bulky water types, and it helps break down bulky grasses really easily. It can also help break down a bunch of other things that these also break down pretty easily, like bulky fairies. Tyranitar, it's going to be switched in pretty easily by bulky waters and bulky fairies, so Excadrill deals with that. But I really think that Darmanitan is one of the best switch-ins to this. Infernape also works out really well. However, Infernape has a secondary stab, meaning that it gets a really powerful move to hit bulky water types with. Sheer Force Life Orb Darmanitan doesn't need that secondary stab. It's still considered a resist, so people are going to forget that it's a resist and that is Sheer Force Life Orb coming off a base like 135 special physical attack, 140 with Sheer Force. It's stupid strong, so even bulky water types can switch in. So as an offensive core and kind of a bulky pivoting core with these two, I think that this is the best way to build around Sand. You have a cleaner that really all it needs gone is bulky waters and bulky grasses, and these two take care of both of that. This thing can break down, I guess bulky psychics is also a little bit of an issue. However, that's why I like pairing it with Tyranitar, because it can pursuit trap them, it can set up on them, it can toxic stall them, it can do a bunch of different things. Tyranitar is stupid good at beating bulky psychics, and if your opponent has, like, say a Cresselia, this thing even gets taunt. Like, it can literally just taunt down the Cresselia, and it can beat it 1v1 with the sand boost from Sandstream boosting its SPDEF. It's not going to take anything from Moonblasts. It might be able to toxic you, but whatever, you're going to be beating it 1v1. So you have the bulky psychics, you have the bulky waters and grasses, and you have the bulky waters covered for baiting and weakening them down for sand. And I think that this specifically makes sand a really big threat. And I actually haven't seen these four drafted together, but I think they work out really well on paper. So if you guys do try it out, let me know. I would love to see how they work out. So super easy concept to get your head around. Super easy build, in my opinion. As far as Sun in my opinion is also really easy to build around, because typically your Sun sweepers you would assume are fire type. They're grass type because of chlorophyll, meaning that your bulky waters that typically try to wall your fire types aren't that good. So something that I always try to suggest whenever you get a Sun team, get this monster. Like, just get this monster right away. Sun boosted V creates is absolutely insane. Base 180 physical power coming off a base 100 in the Sun. This means that your opponent has to bring their bulky water type, which means that Victory Bell. So if you don't know what Victory Bell does, a Victory Bell in my opinion is super standard, super good. It gets really good like heavy hitting moves in Weather Ball. So in Weather Ball, the power doubles in the Sun, turning it to base 100, and then it also turns it into fire type, so it can hit steels. It gets Solar Beam, so it can hit grasses, and then it gets Sludge Bomb, I'm sorry. So it gets Sludge Bomb to be able to hit fairies, so it can hit steels and grasses, waters, rocks, grounds, berries. The only thing that it can't really hit is Ghost, which luckily for you, this Pokemon also gets Knockoff. So this Pokemon is super good. I think it also gets Night Slash if you want to have a little bit. No, it doesn't get Night Slash, my bad. Does it get any other like dark type moves? Sucker Punch, Thief. Okay, so either way, it can break down a lot of really typical cores. The only thing it can't break down are bulky psychics, so that means that you need a really good pursuit trapper. Something that I always like to have with Victini plus Victory Bell is a pursuit trapper that can also set up toxic spikes, because this is a grounded poison that can't set up toxic spikes, and you will be pretty weak to ground, but you can like remedy that later. You can make it to where you're not super weak to ground with like levitators, with really good grass types, things like that. So I like to always have Drapion. This gives you toxic spikes. This gives you pursuit, a strong pursuit at that, at base 90 attack. It's not as strong as T-Tar, of course. I mean, I guess you could go T-Tar as well, but you're still weak to ground. You also now have Sandstream, so you have to run a Nerve. So I prefer Drapion. It gives you T-Spikes, and it gives you a pursuit trapper. And then, realistically, all you need to do is mitigate the ground type weakness, and you're set. You break down every main bulky type that there is. You can break through most cleaner Pokemon with your hard-hitting Weather Ball, Solar Beam, Sludge Bomb combination. All you really need is to switch into ground types. So some of my favorite ground type switch-ins that aren't listed here that I guess you could go, you could go Zapdos. Since you already have a Victini, you can get another tier 1 in free points and just get a little bit lower of a Mega. Typically this is like tier 4, this is like tier 4, so so you could go a Zapdos, you could go a bunch of different things. However, if you are able to, I would suggest getting a Lando T. It is one of the best Earthquake switch-ins in the world. So if you have an early round pick and Victini somehow makes it back to you, that's awesome. If it doesn't, you can go like Infernape, you can go Darmanitan, like that's really easy. But I think having the Lando aspect is even better than having the Victini aspect. So really any good levitator, I guess. Let's just take a look and see which one fits. Wheezing, you would have 3 poison types. That's not good. Flygon could be good, but it's not super bulky. Bronzong is really good because it gets heat proof, but in the sun it's not the best. Mesprit wouldn't be bad, but then you'd have 2 psychic types. You could go Electros to have your slow volt switch, or you could go Vikavolt. So like there's a bunch of really good options. Electros is pretty good. Electros or Mesprit or Uxie would be the 2 that I would suggest the most, or the 3 I would suggest the most. Personally, I think they work out the best. We'll go ahead and we'll throw Mesprit on here because I love Mesprit, one of my favorite psychics. But you have good pivoting between Mesprit, Victini, and Torkoal. You do have 2 psychic types. You do have 2 poison types. You do have 2 fire types. But again, I said earlier that whenever you draft around weather, you're going to be building things with multiple typings. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to break down things like appropriately. The big thing to keep in mind with weather in general that I kind of sort of think I hit pretty well without stating it outright is spam. Like type spamming is one of the best things that you can do. If you have say a like a rain team, you're going to be spamming water type moves. That's how you win, by spamming water type moves. If you have a sand team, you're going to be winning by spamming earthquake, things like that. So you want to type spam. So with this, having fire spam, having poison spam, having psychic spam, having grass spam could even be really good if you got another chlorophyll user, like I'm trying to think of one, like a Lilligant, for example. So having those spammable things are like really nice in weather teams. So always keep that in mind whenever you're building a team. What can I spam to win? And once in order to spam that, what do I need to eliminate? That's how you have to build around it. So that is how I would build around the main forms of weather. I don't really consider hail that viable. Like hail is really good for Aurora Veil, but for offensive weather to be able to have it as a win con, I don't think that Alolan Sandslash plus Beartic is that good. So I didn't really cover that. Realistically, I just don't think that they're that good. I would never personally draft Alolan Sandslash plus Alolan Ninetales. If I'm drafting Alolan Ninetales, I'm drafting it for Veil, and that's about it. I'm not drafting it for the weather aspect. So I think that you guys, I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but I know that some of my friends would. They personally say Alolan Sandslash is a garbo. So but yeah, that is going to be the video, guys. If you all did enjoy, please make sure to leave a like down below for me. It really does help out the channel a lot. Also, make sure you check out all of the other videos. But with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.